So in Britain this week, I couldn't believe it. They have announced, the British government has announced they're spending £50 million on experiments to dim the sun.
We need more capacity for AI. Right now, the demand for AI data centers in America alone is 45 gigs. We only have 5 under construction. The Chinese are building faster than us because they're using coal to generate the electricity, and we've not.
I never thought that I would see a day where I would be rooting for a university above Donald J. Trump and his administration. But I don't recognize his administration right now. I don't recognize what's...
How unusual is this for an entire country, and here we're talking about 2 countries, to lose power like this?
On this scale, it is very unusual.
Good afternoon. Portugal's national grid operator says that a rare atmospheric phenomenon is behind a major power outage that's affected large parts of that country as well as Spain. Footage from the Spanish capital Madrid shows chaotic scenes at junctions as traffic lights have been knocked out.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what we know so far in terms of what is at the, behind all this? What's the cause of this?
It's interesting, we're still waiting for a proper briefing from the grid operators, both in Spain, also in Portugal, about what caused this. We've had a very short reason given, which was a very technical term called oscillation, about something to do with the grid voltage or frequency that has caused the widespread blackouts. But really, we don't have much information yet, and we've just been hearing that it's too soon to tell.
It's the last factor I want to mention is resilience. The capability to bounce back, because there will be certainly what we call the black swans, the unpleasant surprises which will come in our way.
Well, play was suspended at the Madrid Open, forcing the game between Grigor Dimitrov and Jacob Fernley to be stopped. Scoreboards went dark and some cameras lost power. Well, this is a station in Lisbon where the power outage to darkness underground. Of course, Portuguese police say that the metro has been closed in both Lisbon and Porto too. Well, some of the cities affected by this, Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia and Seville in Spain, as well as Lisbon, Faro and Porto in Portugal. Andorra and parts of France have also seen some effect. I'm going to need you to explain to me. Anomalous oscillations have led to a phenomenon known as induced atmospheric vibration.
Yes, it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? And I think we should bear in mind at the moment that is information coming from Portugal's power grid operator. It hasn't yet been confirmed by the Spanish grid authorities. And I would say at this stage, it is unlikely that one single event when one thing might have precipitated this grid collapse, but it's likely that more than one thing went wrong. Because a power grid failure of this scale, and we're still waiting to find out how many people have been affected, but you were just listing some of Europe's largest cities there across Spain.
Cardinals set May 7th as a start date for the conclave to elect Pope Francis' successor, delaying this secret voting so they can get to know one another better and find consensus on a candidate before they are sequestered in the Sistine Chapel. NBC's Ann Thompson reports from the Vatican.
We have a start date for the conclave. It's going to begin on May 7th. That news this morning after the cardinals met here in Vatican City. There are currently 180 cardinals here in Vatican City, but only 100 of them are cardinal electors. And in all, there are 135 men who are eligible to choose the next pope. So it seems that the Vatican is waiting for the others to arrive. Now, as the cardinals get on with the business of getting to know each other and talking about the future of the church, the faithful have turned their attention to the Basilica Santa Maria Maggiore. That is where Pope Francis is buried. And over the weekend, there were long lines outside that basilica wrapping around the church. In fact, on Sunday, Roman officials tell us that 30,000 people had filed past Pope Francis's tomb. Just one example of the esteem that he was held in this city and around the world.
So did you know Pope Francis is the last Pope? And after that, it will be the Judgment Day. So it literally ends after Pope Francis? Yeah. And this book in the Vatican archives, right, predicted every single pope from 1143 all the way to our current pope. But the scary thing is after Pope Francis, the last one, it just says Judgment Day. And the creepiest thing inside St. Paul's Basilica ordering the whole inner sanctuary is a picture of every single pope, right? But what's weird is that there's only a certain amount of markers where you can put the picture. There's just one left after Pope Francis. They've always said once that last slot is filled, it will be the end of the world. He predicted the time it took to go from the first pope that he wrote about to the halfway mark was 422 years. He's saying from the middle one to the end, another 422 years will be the end of the world. If you do 422 in the middle pope, which was 1,585, that year is 2027. It's even weirder. Pope John the 23rd, he said that the end of the world would happen 2,000 years plus Christ's life. So that adds up to 2027 as well. Terrifying, isn't it?
In Britain this week, I couldn't believe it. They have announced, the British government has announced they're spending £50 million on experiments to dim the sun using chemical trails in the air to combat climate. You couldn't make it up, but they're doing it.
Britain? What country? What country? The sun-soaked land of what?
Welcome back. Power is almost fully restored to Spain after a massive blackout that impacted millions. The power outage yesterday affected large parts of both Spain and Portugal. It grounded flights, created chaos for public transportation, left many without phone and internet coverage. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Madrid with the latest. Raf, good morning.
Joe, good morning from the very heart of Madrid, and you can probably see life here very much back to normal. Spanish authorities are saying they have restored power at this point to 99% of customers. Similar picture over in Portugal, but there are major questions about what caused this blackout, which spanned across borders.
Made billions out of creating super clunky corporate software. What you didn't realize is that Bill Gates doesn't think of himself that way. Bill Gates doesn't think of himself as some guy who got super rich making bad software. Bill Gates thinks of himself as God, in control of the solar system. And that's why Bill Gates is now backing something called sun-dimming technology that would reflect sunlight out of the Earth's atmosphere, causing global cooling.
British scientists are launching a £40 million government-funded geoengineering experiment to literally test dimming the sun in the name of solving climate change. The government's Advanced Research and Invention Agency, or ARIA, aims to block sunlight reaching the Earth's surface with projects that include spraying aerosols in the atmosphere to make clouds brighter, which will then reflect sunshine. What could go wrong? If successful, ARIA thinks the plan could temporarily reduce surface temperatures, which would then give humans more time to reduce carbon emissions.
Bill Gates thinks he's in charge of the planet. What should we be worried about here?
I mean, basically everything. I mean, when I first heard about this over 2 decades ago, this was a thought experiment, but this is real. They're really trying to do this. They've encountered opposition every step of the way.
In America, British plans to block the sun have even caught the attention of Donald Trump's White House. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the US Secretary of Health and Human Services, tweeted just a few days ago, "We'll soon end this crime against humanity and our planet and bring justice to the plutocrats who are perpetuating this mass uncontrolled experiment."
I've co-authored articles with the Harvard investigator. We've told him personally this is a terrible idea. The vast majority of scientists disagree with this. You have to remember what they're proposing to do is identical to what we feared would occur after nuclear war in the 1980s, which is nuclear winter.
What they're proposing to do is identical to what we feared would occur after nuclear war in the 1980s, which is nuclear winter.
Also delayed play at the Madrid Open. Empty courts at the annual clay tournament when scoreboards and match cameras lost power.
I didn't sleep that well last night, so maybe I just need to not get a lot of sleep.
Well, I think we've just lost a bit of sound there.
The dropout blamed on Spain's electricity grid. Portuguese grid officials say due to extreme temperature variations in the interior of Spain, there were anomalous oscillations in the very high voltage lines, a phenomenon known as induced atmospheric vibration. It is estimated that full normalization of the network could take up to a week.
Ashna, I mean, you were probably one of the few flights that managed to get into Madrid today. It's been utterly chaotic and shambolic there for thousands, tens of thousands of travelers, but millions of people across the two countries.
It feels very chaotic and it feels very frantic, Yalda. We're coming live to you now off a small, very tiny fraction of 4G that we've managed to find within a very tiny segment of Madrid airport. And it does feel, as I say, very chaotic. I'm just standing outside departures. Inside, you can see hundreds and hundreds of people clutching their luggage, clutching their passports, and clutching their phones, desperate to get any form of signal, any form of information. Crucially, there are queues wherever you look. There are queues from the taxis, queues from the staff desk, queues for the information desk. There is such a lack of information, but such a desperation in the air too. It gives you a sense of how reliant we are on having any sort of connectivity. When it comes to electricity, there is an announcement that goes off every few minutes here at the airport that talks about the fact that we're running on emergency contingency generators. That tells you all you need to know. That air traffic control allowed us to land today on one of the very few flights landing into Madrid because of those emergency generators. Of course, they're only going to have a very short shelf life. It's why the number of flights that are allowed to go in and out today are being rationed. This disruption began at lunchtime and it's going on for hours now, and there are still people arriving, even though they may have been told from their airlines not to come to the airport. Some of them are just desperate to any form of information to try and get back to special occasions, get home, get across the world.
The conclave process starts 15 to 20 days after the death of the Pope. The Catholic cardinals are sequestered in the Sistine Chapel, and they are forbidden from speaking to anyone outside of that whole process. Rounds of voting continue until one candidate receives a 2/3 supermajority. This whole process can take several days, and the crowd waiting outside the Vatican is notified a Pope has been elected when the chimney above the Sistine Chapel billows out white smoke.
As Catholic cardinals flock to Vatican City for the funeral of Pope Francis, they're also gathering for discussions on who will succeed him in a secretive behind-closed-doors process known as the conclave.
And they'll be locked in together, and they'll have rounds of voting until they select the next pope.
Francis represented a more progressive approach for the church. The first pope from the Americas, he put an emphasis on making it more accessible and welcoming to regular people.
It wasn't just about beliefs, but it was primarily about moving out into the world and serving people.
The church's competing ideological wings could be at odds over the best path forward.
The church is already divided, and the people in red hats who do not like the direction in which Pope Francis has taken the Catholic Church make no question about the fact that they want something different.
Any baptized Catholic is eligible to be pope, but the church hasn't elected someone who's not a cardinal in more than 600 years. It's possible we could see the first pope from Africa or Asia, where the church has larger opportunities for growth. The cardinals will keep voting until a 2/3 supermajority is reached.
And if there's no winner, black smoke will come out of the chimney and above the Sistine Chapel. If they should elect a pope, then the proverbial, the famous white smoke billows out of the pipe.
Francis' funeral begins a traditional 9-day period of mourning.
But he changed the people's perceptions of how important those teachings were, and certainly a lot of people concluded that it was a matter of private conscience.
All right, so we all know that Pope Francis has died, and there are several cardinals who could be picked for the position. In my previous video, I talked about the prophecy of the popes, where St. Archbishop Malachi had 112 short, cryptic phrases in Latin which predicted the future of the popes. and all descriptions were pretty accurate. The last pope, he stated, would be Peter the Roman, and this person would lead us into tribulation. And on the list of the candidates for the new pope position is Peter Turkson. This man right here, get this, he was the president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, and he was born in the year 1948, the same year Israel became a nation. His birthday was on October the 11th. And did you know that the day he was born, the Apollo 7 rocket was launched? Just thought that was interesting. He's a Ghanaian prelate and is emerging as a leading candidate to become the first black pope. He's also known for advocating social justice and opposing anti-LGBTQ+ policies. Now let's get back to this. Peter the Roman. Turkson was born in Rome to African parents. Not only that, but Nostradamus had a prophecy of the end times with the Black Pope. This states another interpretation comes from the prophecies of Nostradamus, who supposedly predicted the arrival of a Black Pope following the death of an elderly pontiff. For some, this could refer to the election of an African cardinal as the next pope. And get this, currently there are 33 African cardinals eligible to vote in a future conclave. Many believe that the Pope from the prophecy of the popes, the last one, will bring on the Antichrist and help him come to power. Vatican is supposed to pick their next pope in the next 15 days, so we shall see. But if that man gets it, I'm going to be watching him closely.
So when one thing might have precipitated this grid collapse, but it's likely that more than one thing went wrong, because a power grid failure of this scale, and we're still waiting to find out how many people have been affected, but you were just listing some of Europe's largest cities there across Spain and Portugal. This is quite possibly the largest outage we've seen in Europe, maybe not in history, but certainly for a very long time. And things like that don't happen for no reason. And these grids are engineered to be as reliable and dependable as possible, because there are, and I think we take them for granted while they're working, we don't realise just how much of a kind of plate spinning act keeping a large grid system, and this is a very large grid system that Spain operates across the whole of the Iberian Peninsula, some of it connected to, as you were saying there, directly to Portugal, also interconnects to part of France, and it also supplies all of Spain's island nations as well, around the mainland Spain. It's a very, very large grid.
Which is nuclear winter. The idea is that you cool the planet deliberately. The effects on crops are completely unknown. They call this an experiment, but they know that there is no way to figure out what the large-scale planetary effects of this kind of thing would be. It's grossly irresponsible. They know for a fact that they will never get international agreement on this. So they're basically trying to socialize the idea, normalize the idea, make us comfortable with an idea that should make us extremely uncomfortable.
As authorities in Spain and Portugal work to get the whole of the Iberian Peninsula reconnected to the power grid, questions are being asked what caused the two countries to suddenly go offline. A massive outage hit us around lunchtime on Monday, plunging businesses and transport networks into chaos.
En lo que respecta a las causas, about the cause, what the Red Electrica technicians are telling us is that at 12:33 this afternoon, 15 gigawatts of generation were suddenly lost from the system, and that they were lost in just 5 seconds. This is something that has never happened before. Que no había ocurrido jamás.
After a power outage impacting tens of millions, cheers as the lights finally came back on.
Allegations of misconduct against several members of the Mesa Park Rangers unit.
Yeah, one ranger resigning, others placed on leave as calls for accountability pour in tonight.
DC-15 investigator Nicole Gregg broke the story and has more now for us.
The allegations are disturbing. Several Mesa Park Rangers, who are civilian employees with no law enforcement powers, allegedly targeting and mistreating the unhoused and African Americans.
And even those who frequent the parks who are unhoused, they deserve dignity, respect, and to be treated well.
The NAACP responding Tuesday after the ABC-15 investigators learned that Mesa police launched an investigation into several city park rangers who allegedly called themselves the Goon Squad. Park rangers could allegedly earn a patch as a makeshift reward for gooning, which is described as how they would plan on beating up black people and the homeless.
So we got a photo of the patch. That's the patch.
Yeah, this is horrible. The community does not like to see the Punisher skull, right? Because that represents lawlessness, violating the law. That's what the Punisher did.
It's unclear who created the patch. It has 2 handcuffs to make the O's in goons and a bullet.
Park Rangers, one, they don't have firearms, so why do you even have a bullet here, right? And then you have a billy club, which we know what those have typically been used for. And this is scary to see.
The city of Mesa now hiring an independent consultant to come in to investigate the Rangers. A city council member taking it even further, calling for a broad review of the management practices of the Parks and Rec Department, saying in part, we must be accountable and address these systematic issues immediately to restore public confidence. The NAACP calling for those involved to be fired.
And this is something that apparently has been going on for a while, that should not be happening, and people really need to be held accountable. Not just one person, but this supervisor, the director of Parks and Rec. Like, these people need to be held accountable for sure.
Along with allegations of excessive force and racial slurs, some rangers are accused of sexual conduct while on duty and not turning in drugs that they would confiscate. One park ranger has resigned and several others are on leave as this investigation plays out.
In the race to develop robots that are smarter and faster, a test of sorts, pitting 12,000 runners beside 21 humanoids along a 13-mile course billed as the world's first half marathon starring machines.
Unlike the human runners here, the robots have a choice. They can have their batteries changed or just lie down.
It feels like I'm watching the development of machines, the development of artificial intelligence.
The event was hosted in an area of the capital called E-Town, which is a government-backed hub for high-tech manufacturing. China is aiming to lead the global race in cutting-edge technology.
For me, I think in about 5 years' time, these products will begin to appear in everyday life and in the family home. There may be certain limitations on their capabilities at first. It's impossible for them to do all the housework for you, like a maid, but their capabilities will improve.
There were some mishaps along the way.
We met Tiangong before the race.
Saying hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
In a demonstration of what the company calls embodied intelligence that plants smarter AI into a more durable body with legs that function like human limbs over varied terrain. Next generations can look more lifelike with silicone skin, hair, and facial expressions.
What's your name?
The idea for humanoids to do jobs ranging from manufacturing and home repairs to companionship and caring for the elderly.
For a lot of people, this might be freaky. How do you get humans to accept robots as a fact of life?
We want robots to feel more real, says Wei Jiaxing, so people feel more comfortable around them. There's been a huge push behind humanoid robots in China. Videos of them dancing, performing, or doing kung fu have gone viral on social media here. China's government and state media promoting the industry as the next big thing, like the campaign behind Chinese electric vehicles.
But developers say this is just the beginning and predict it won't be long before robots are not just running races, but are helping to run homes and businesses too.
Hinton, now on the AI sidelines, says government regulation is needed, but doesn't expect it soon.
I'm curious if just in your normal day-to-day life you despair. You fear for the future and assume it won't be so good.
I don't despair, but mainly because even I find it very hard to take it seriously. It's very hard to get your head around the fact that we're at this very, very special point in history where in a relatively short time, everything might totally change. A change of a scale we've never seen before. It's hard to absorb that emotionally.
But mostly, the rapid progress really worries him.
The best way to understand it emotionally is we're like somebody who has this really cute tiger cub. It's just such a cute tiger cub. unless you can be very sure that it's not going to want to kill you when it's grown up.
Straight out of science fiction, a CIA file about aliens attacking Soviet forces has gone viral, raising eyebrows and dropping jaws. Chief Transportation Correspondent and pilot Mackay Buehler has the declassified report. Got everyone talking. Whoa, you've got your hands on the file, Mackay.
Yeah, I got my hands on the file, and I can't believe we're talking about this. Times are changing.
Yeah.
Times are changing. All right, it may sound fanciful and difficult to believe. You may think it's hogwash, while others believe it's possible. So the CIA just posted on its website a single-page summary, there it is, of a hostile encounter between the Russian army and a flying saucer that is said to have occurred sometime between 1989 and 1990. So that's when, according to portions of an extensive 250-page KGB file featuring witness testimony and photographs, detail how 25 Soviet troops were practicing training drills when a, quote, low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer, unquote, flew above their base in Siberia. Now, the report states that for unknown reasons, the sighting prompted the men to launch a surface-to-air missile, bringing the craft down.
Wow, this is crazy. So what in this report, what does it allege the soldiers, what do they do with the aircraft?
It's what they did with the aircraft. It's what the aircraft or its occupants did with them. So yeah, this is what happened. According to the file, quote, 5 short humanoids with large heads, large black eyes emerged from the wreckage before fusing together into a single object, a spherical shape that emitted a buzzing sound. The report goes on to say the sphere burst into an explosion of white light, leaving 23 of the men, quote, turned into stone poles, unquote, while the remaining 2 that apparently were shielded from the blast by being in the shade escaped unharmed. Now, the bodies of the victims and what was left of the UFO were recovered by the Red Army and taken to a research lab outside Moscow, where it was found that the molecular structure of the men was that of limestone.
What?
What is this behind the rain off the Louisiana Gulf Coast? That's right outside of Houston. That is not rain. That is not how weather works. There are weird waves showing up on the radar. So again, we'll start with that. That's the rain. Behind the rain and that. What is this? So meteorologists have been sharing this on Twitter saying, what in the heck is that? So now here's how radar works. Okay, I'm going to show you this. This is how radar works. The radar dome sends out a beam. Yeah. It hits the rain. It bounces back. And it says that's rain. So it detects something. It detects something in the atmosphere. So after that rain moved through, it detected something. Yes. What was it? Okay, Mario, what was it?
It was the mothership that I've been talking about. And they are loud and proud, and they are, I'm telling you, they're getting ready to make themselves known. It's all over the social media. But what I do love is that meteorologists are now seeing this and saying, something right.
What is going on with the WEF? I'm getting total villain, last boss type vibes. Make sure you stick around because you will not hear this anywhere else. We'll come right back to this stuff. Now, before we get into the really crazy part, we have the WEF talking about implanting devices in Bluetooth headphones and other things for who knows what. And yeah, this is pretty crazy, but it gets crazier.
Durable devices. So these are brain sensors that are starting to be embedded in everyday devices, but until now have been a number of niche companies that really have focused on mindfulness and meditation. The use of, for example, brain sensors that can pick up electrical activity in the brain at a pretty low resolution.
So y'all heard that, right? They're already putting chips in your headphones that can read your brain activity. We also just had Schwabi step down and this guy step up. But let's be real, why do they want to measure your brain activity? What kind of electrical signals can they pick up from your brain? Do you see this behind me? Automatic machine for identifying blanks of blank from voice to skull? So this is a patent that fights against the other patent, which is the voice to skull. So I'm sure you're wondering, what is voice to skull? Well, it's technology where they can implant voices in your own head. You'll think it's you half the time. So I was actually going to get the voice to skull patent, then I found this one instead. If you want to look farther into it. TikTok is a picture, I'm sure they all have infections. So I've showed you in times past where they can literally read your brain from the camera on your phone using your eyes. And through that, they'll decode some electronic signature from your brain to know what you're thinking. Also now with your headphones, they can get that same exact signal. We also have AI being able to detect your location through walls. So long story short, because I'm just joking and I'm just giving y'all some fiction, theoretically, it would never happen. When voices beam to your skull, they'll know what you're thinking about that voice because your headphones or whatever else kind of technology. This all coming up when the last boss fight is stepping up in the new identification required to enter government buildings.
On Wednesday of this week, Donald Trump will hit 100 days in office. As he approaches that milestone, a reminder of what he declared and promised to the American people.
I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before.
All right, well, fast forward 3 months, and the vibe isn't exactly sunshine radiating across the globe. In fact, the American people are serving Trump and his MAGA administration a sobering reality check. Our new polling shows that 55% disapprove of the way Trump is handling his job as president. A new Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll also finds his approval ratings have fallen 6 points since February. And when you zero in on Trump's major policies, the results are even more stark. More than half of adults don't like how Trump is handling immigration, managing the federal government, and looking out for the interests of average Americans. And when it comes to the economy, foreign relations, tariffs, and turmoil in the stock market, a staggering 60% do not approve. Now, Trump's 100-day rating is lower than any U.S. president since the 1940s. It's a striking referendum on the dramatic shifts that have come to define the past few months. We've watched Trump upend long-established precedents and sign more than 100 executive orders in an attempt to remake the U.S. government in his image. He's taken his attacks on critics to new extremes, taking aim at universities, law firms, student activists, even the courts. He's gutted federal agencies. He shattered the post-World War II global order and intensely escalated immigration enforcement by deporting immigrants that even include U.S. citizens. It is safe to say that he is testing the limits of presidential power. What could happen in the next 100 days? White House officials say we can expect the administration to focus on trade deals and peace talks. In the words of one Trump official, there are, quote, lots of torpedoes under the water. And executive actions are going to continue like a, quote, snowball running downhill. Trump's unpopular policies will soon face a huge test as well. He is asking GOP lawmakers to deliver on his big, beautiful bill to extend tax cuts, slash an estimated $1.5 trillion in federal spending, and fund his crackdown on immigration. And of course, as Congress returns from recess, Republicans face a major test of unity to pass that spending plan after muscling through a budget framework earlier this month. Also on the table, the question surrounding Trump's demands to some of the country's largest law firms and whether he has violated the law. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal and Congressman Jamie Raskin recently wrote to 5 of those law firms which made deals with the president before he could target them in executive orders. They write, quote, "Your agreement makes you complicit in efforts to undermine the rule of law and to turn private attorneys into President Trump's personal law firm."
I never thought that I would see a day where I would be rooting for a university above Donald J. Trump and his administration. But I don't recognize his administration right now. I don't recognize what's happening. I have a theory. I do. We were kicking around some theories earlier, me and the team, and we were going, how could Trump be such a free speech enthusiast and allowing these things to happen? Going after college universities, trying to suppress speech, while pretending that you're not suppressing speech, while pretending that you're fighting DEI. It's so messy, it's so obvious. Everyone knows what you're doing. People who are still trying to grift, I suppose, are not willing to challenge you on this, which is ridiculous, because when you are out of office, we are going to have to live with these consequences. Our children are going to have to grow up in this America, okay? So if you threaten our speech, it's not worth it so that we can have pom-poms and go hurrah for a couple of years, then go, okay, well, yeah, now it kind of stinks because, we're getting arrested for wrongthink. We got David Friedman, yeah, arrest him, arrest Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, get him, I love it. And if you think it's going to stop with college campuses, you're out of your mind. So you better buck up and root for Harvard University in this fight.
It's without saying.
One and done.
New this morning, farewell to Atlas. Boston Dynamics is retiring the humanoid robot after a decade. Do you remember seeing this? HD Atlas was created in 2013 as part of a Department of Defense contest. We've seen it walk, run, backflip, twirl, and dance over the years. Kind of creepy. Boston Dynamics says it's time for the hydraulic robot to kick back and relax. So they didn't give an exact reason why they're retiring Atlas, but I don't know, maybe they're coming up with something new and they need to kind of make room.
When he started asking to find Sarah Connor, there's trouble.
Yeah.
From Terminator.
Okay.
Sarah Connor.
Not good.
Not good.
Totally awesome or totally frightening. Look at this. China's military has released this video of a four-legged robot marching through a field with an automatic rifle mounted on its back. The Chinese state broadcaster calls it the newest member of China's urban combat operations. The robot dogs are programmed to conduct reconnaissance, identify the enemy, and strike the target. If that thing comes around the corner and if you're on the other side, you're done.
Yeah, over.
Kevin, your thoughts. Are you worried? Are we falling behind? Does stuff like this worry you that it comes out of China? Or are you so confident that we still have the lead in all of the AI humanoid bot race?
No, we're in a... Listen, we got to worry about this.
Yeah.
We have to own this space. We need more capacity for AI. Right now, the demand for AI data centers in America alone is 45 gigs. We only have 5 under construction. The Chinese are building faster than us because they're using coal to generate the electricity, and we've not allowed that here. We got a big problem because this is moving by every 12-month cycles, and so we can't. Are you going to let a Chinese robot walk around your house with a camera on it? Are you kidding? So we got to catch up on this stuff.
God, I'm 77.
Hinton predicts AI will make authoritarians more oppressive and hackers more effective. He now spreads his money across 3 banks. The exact odds of an AI apocalypse are unknowable.
Tonight, a Houston family is mourning the death of their daughter. Police say that Ashley Long died at the hands of a random gunman in downtown Dallas, all over touching a Mercedes. Amelia McGavro hearing from the family, hoping that their pain can create some change with the kind of violence in the city.
I felt dead inside. She was my everything.
It's been a little over a week since Mother Michelle Long and her family laid their daughter, 28-year-old Ashley Long, to rest. Never again getting to go on an adventure or send her a text.
We always said goodnight to each other every night.
Ashley was a successful real estate agent in the Houston area. Her family says she was in Dallas on April 5th for a networking trip.
Night out on the town and then being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
In the arrest affidavit, police say one of the men Ashley was with reached out and brushed his hand along the passenger side of a passing Mercedes as they were walking across the street. Investigators say that's when 34-year-old Kendrick Finch got out of the passenger side with a gun. The man Ashley was with pulled out his own gun from her purse. Police say Finch then shot Ashley and the man. The man survived, but Ashley unfortunately died in the hospital from multiple gunshot wounds.
It was heartbreaking.
nothing I could do. I was so far away.
It was just like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She would have been there 5 minutes earlier, 5 minutes later, things would be different.
After police searched for the suspect for days, video from Smash the Topic shows Finch turning himself in last Friday on murder charges. As Ashley's family now waits for justice, they still hold on to her memory.
Well, you said something a couple weeks ago that struck me. You said concerning the tariffs, which economists say are going to raise prices, you said, quote, hang tough. It won't be easy. You said that to the American people. Is that what Americans should expect, some hard times?
I've said that during my campaign. Look, we won a campaign by a lot. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by a lot. We had a tremendous campaign. I said all of these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period. We've been ripped off by every country all over the world. They're laughing at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we were. And I said, that's not going to happen. We're not
hard
going to let that
times?
happen.
Hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I think great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. You don't have the drop in fuel and energy and oil like we did. I took it from maybe $3.20, maybe more than that, down into a much lower number. When you have that kind of a drop, you're not going to have inflation.
Not now, but it's the tariffs, right? We still have 145% tariffs on China. Your Treasury Secretary said we basically have an embargo on China.
Look, you're trying to say something's going to happen,
No,
Terry.
okay, well,
nothing's going to happen.
You know business.
Terry,
I want to ask you.
I do know business.
Yes, so 145% tariffs on China. And that is basically an embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it.
That's mathematics.
China probably will eat those tariffs, but at 145, they basically can't do much business with the United States. And they were making from us $1 trillion a year. They were ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us off. And by the way, we have other countries that were just as bad. If you look at the European Union, it was terrible what they've done to us. Every country, almost every country in the world was ripping us off.
For Trump's second term.
Well, great anguish and upset, both among my constituents in Maryland's beautiful 8th District, but across Maryland, across the country. Donald Trump destroyed $6 to $7 trillion in retirement savings and individual and company wealth. He plunged us into a trade war with the entire world, except for his buddies in Moscow. He's been wrecking federal departments and agencies by firing people wholesale without any due process at all. And of course, he's been trampling due process when it comes to the rights of immigrants in the country. So it's pretty much a horror show. The good news is that people are standing up all over the country. We've got institutions like Harvard University and like WilmerHale that are standing up against this and leading the way forward. We've got labor unions like AFGE, the AFL-CIO itself, which have said no way. So the country is in an uproar about this full-blown assault both on democracy and the major achievements of democracy, like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, where they want to cut $880 billion over the next couple of weeks. So that's the coming showdown as we come back to Congress this week.
And I certainly admire and respect, sir, your optimism. But on the other side of that, you have universities like Columbia that have capitulated. And as you and your colleague, Senator Richard Blumenthal, have written to some of the top law firms demanding transparency and accountability, there's concern that those law firms, powerful law firms, have also capitulated. What is important for viewers to know about these deals between the Trump administration and these law firms? And in what ways, if at all, do you believe any of this action, any of their actions, may have violated the law?
Well, the first thing to note is there's no safety in appeasing authoritarians. So Donald Trump comes forward and says, for the first time in American history, I'm mad at this law firm and that law firm and that law firm, and I'm not going to allow any of you into federal buildings, including courthouses. I'm going to revoke your federal security clearance. I'm going to deny you federal contracts because I don't like what one of your lawyers or one of your former lawyers once did. It's obviously blatantly unconstitutional, and yet so many law firms led by Paul Weiss-Rifkin just gave in out of fear that, they were going to be trampled in the process, and somehow they thought they could deal with this monster. But the law firms that have stood up, like Perkins Coie and Sussman Godfrey and Wilmer Hale, have shown the way, because they went to court, and within a matter of days, they got injunctions against this lawlessness, which obviously violates the freedom of speech, the right to counsel, due process, and so on. And it's the same thing.
A 10 to 20% risk AI will take over from humans.
People haven't got it yet. Yeah. People haven't understood what's coming. I don't think there's a way of stopping it to take control if it wants to. The issue is, can we design it in such a way that it never wants to take control, that it's always benevolent?
Those concerns have long been shared by other AI leaders. Google CEO Sundar Pichai.
It can be very harmful if deployed wrongly.
Ex-AI's Elon Musk, who continues to call for regulation.
It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
Sam Altman, seen here before he became OpenAI's CEO.
I think AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world.
But now, as these companies race each other and compete with China, Hinton worries they're foolishly, selfishly, putting all of humanity at risk.
If you look at what the big companies are doing right now, they're lobbying to get less AI regulation. There's hardly any regulation as it is, but they want less, because they want short-term profits.
Ilya Sutskever, Hinton's most famous protege, went on to be chief scientist at OpenAI.
We just set up a large neural network, which is a large digital brain.
In 2023, he was part of the group that pushed out CEO Sam Altman, reportedly because they didn't trust that Altman was prioritizing safety.
I was quite proud of him for firing Sam Altman, even though it was very naive.
Naive, Hinton says, because OpenAI employees were about to get millions of dollars that would be jeopardized by Altman's departure. Altman returned, Sutskever left. Hinton criticizes his former colleagues at Google more reluctantly, but says they're falling short too.
Were you disappointed when Google went back on its promise not to support military uses of AI?
Very disappointed.
But it's part of a pattern, Hinton says, adding Meta and xAI to the list of companies racing faster than they should.
You believe then that we would get here?
Yes, but not this soon.
Because that was 40 years.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd get here in only 40 years.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, I didn't believe we'd get here.
It happened fast.
I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out.
We have to get them out fast. Really bad guys. But in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say.
But they get due process. Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans. They get whatever my lawyers say.
We had some tattoos that are interpreted that way, but let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
You did not have the letter MS13.
It says MS13.
That was Photoshop. So let me.
That was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want. I want to turn to Ukraine,
No,
sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but
they're in your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else.
Lucky day. You're so lucky. You're full of luck. It's your lucky day.
No, it wasn't Sarah's lucky day. It was a setup for a classic $20 distraction scam. And by the time it was over, thousands had vanished from her bank account and her daughter's.
And this is the Ralph's I usually come to.
On Wednesday, April 16th, Sarah went to Ralph's grocery store on Satakoy Street and Louise Avenue in Van Nuys. As she was using her debit card to pay, a stranger approached her and said
that I dropped $20, and I said, no, I don't think I did. And I was putting my PIN into the machine, and he came much closer to me and was kind of pushing the $20 into my wallet. You need to back up. Back off.
It all happened in a matter of seconds. Sarah kept insisting.
And I'm like, no, this is yours. This isn't mine.
As Sarah walked back to her car, the same man, now joined by a woman, followed her, again insisting she'd take the $20. They continued to invade her space.
I knew it wasn't mine. The reason I was getting cash back was because all I had was a couple dollars.
Sarah left the parking lot feeling weird about the encounter. She checked her wallet to see if maybe they had taken any of her cash. They hadn't, but something else was missing.
My heart sank because my debit card wasn't there.
Within 30 minutes, the scammers made multiple withdrawals at Chase Bank several miles away. In total, nearly $5,000 was taken from Sarah's account and her daughter Jennifer's too, because their accounts are linked.
My money is gone and I had just gotten paid. And I'm a teacher. I don't make a lot of money. I really don't. And what I make goes to the things I need, and we can't cover that right now. So it's hard to know that someone can take what you have so easily.
Jennifer filed a police report and shared the story online. She was stunned by the response. One after another, people commented the same thing had happened to them or their loved ones.
It's a huge violation, and I just feel, like I'm looking over my shoulder everywhere I go. It just is horrible.
The Rothschilds destroyed Tartaria. Please, let me explain. Their timeline is exactly the same as the reset. Take a look at this. If you look at the Rothschilds timeline, it's the same as the Great Reset in 1776. Look at this, guys. It's uncanny. When the Rothschilds were becoming established, it's exactly the same time as when Tartaria was on their downfall and the reset was happening. Has anyone ever looked at this? It's obvious, guys. Again, in 1776, it's the same timeline as the Rothschilds timeline. When they were coming into power, it was the same time as the Great Reset, guys, and the mud floods. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Also, this is the Rothschilds' humble abode. Look at the etheric technology on the top. I think they were a Tartarian family, and they took over, and they knew exactly what was happening, so they made a new world order. Also, the Rothschilds connected to the Oddfellows. The Oddfellows were in charge of all the orphanages through the reset and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Bit weird, yeah? Also, the Rothschilds funded all the wars, and the wars were only there to destroy all of the old world architecture, guys. Ain't it really adding up now? Understand? And last but not least, the Rothschilds loaned £400,000 back in 1850s. Today, that would be 4.7 billion to the Catholic Church. Come on, guys. They took it from old world to new world, can't you see? And they also destroyed all of the world fairs.
When it comes to the Cabbage Patch Kids, have you ever wondered why they came with adoption papers? Maybe it was just more than some little cute gimmick? In my last video, I talked about how the orphan train shipped over 250,000 children across America. This all took place between 1854 and 1929 under the so-called Orphan Relocation Program. But here is where the rabbit hole goes even deeper. These Cabbage Patch Kids were sold as babies that you could adopt, complete with official paperwork. That being said, some people believe that this was a form of predictive programming, basically just mocking the actual true dark history that might have happened. Now let's actually think about this for a moment. In the orphan train era, kids were rounded up, stripped of their origins, and then sent to these new families. That sounded a little familiar? Most of these kids were young enough that they were the prime age for indoctrination. Basically a whole entire memory swipe. It does seem strange, the idea of children growing from a Cabbage Patch, though. It's almost like they just popped up out of nowhere. Similar in the way that we don't know where all these orphans came from. Now, I'm not saying that these are clones, but I am saying that there's a lot more evidence for that claim than you might think. So was this all just one big coincidence, or just another twisted way of them putting the truth in plain sight?
But he changed the people's perceptions of how important those teachings were, and certainly a lot of people concluded that it was a matter of private conscience.
But his liberal leanings heightened division in the church.
Whether he will be seen as very pivotal in terms of doctrine of the church, or whether he was the first in a liberalizing trend or was an anomaly, history will have to tell.
Cardinals are now meeting in preparation for the conclave, the secretive process by which they'll choose the next pope. Are you watching closely, wondering what's happening in these meetings of cardinals?
I like to hope it's at least a healthy amount of curiosity and not too much. Anytime in my own heart I'm tempted to ever start to get concerned about how might this go, it's an opportunity to make an act of faith and invite the Lord to be in charge.
At the Pontifical North American College, seminarians Robert Williams and Dominique Walters told us it's a, quote, beautiful testament to the church that there's so much interest in its historic traditions, notably the conclave and the film that dramatized it.
Is what's about to take place anything like what we saw in the conclave, the movie?
Yeah. The church as being really shaped by the politics of the day. The movie has certainly gotten a lot of people interested in a papal election, but I think the truth is somehow much simpler and also so much more complex, because the church isn't just a human institution.
I think the truth is somehow much simpler and also so much more complex, because the church isn't just a human institution. Church isn't just a human institution. Church isn't just a human institution.